All right, so we're going to work on the actual physical part of hand cutting these stencils now, which is the part where it gets good. So what we want to do is we want to take our, we're going to want to take this image, right, which is our digital printout. It's got just a portrait, the background on it. We're going to have a big stack of those all ready to go, right? And what we want to do is we want to cut these stencils that'll go right over the top of it. So our stencils have been printed out separately, so we're ready to go with those. So now we just have to take the time to physically cut these out. And so all that means is we need to get our stencil paper ready to go. And so the stencil paper will come in different kinds of sizes, but we only want it to be a little bit bigger than our 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. So, just use a straight edge or, eyeball it, whatever makes sense for you, because these are a little bit extra large, right? And we'll just cut it here on the 9-inch line. Should give us more than enough room, right? So I have two pieces. You can, you may find some stencil paper that's already cut. You want to have a really sharp X-Acto blade. That's important. And then, make sure that it fits over the top of this. And then what we want to do, first thing, is we want to use a pencil or a pen or something and transfer these registration marks to our stencil paper. It's really important that you use something that won't rub off real easy, that you can kind of find again. You just want to transfer these registration marks, because that's what's going to help us know where the next, where the next layer needs to go. So we want to transfer that first thing. We'll do that to both pieces. And again, be precise so that you know that things are in the right places. You can, you don't have to do all 8 of them. You can just do 4 if you want. Don't let your stencil paper move like that. It's not good. And remember, we're going to cut this print out into a bleed, so it really doesn't matter how, what happens on the edges. We're going to trim these down so that they're only 7.5 by 10.5. So now I can take this, put it away, get my first stencil out. And again, what I would suggest you do is use those registration marks that we transferred over and line them up with the registration marks that are on your actual guide that we're going to use to cut the stencils out. And then, I like to do this just to make sure that everything stays put. So tape is always an artist's friend. We use it like crazy, right? So I've taped the back of my piece of paper like this so that I know that it's not going to come off, and then I can line up my registration marks so that they're in the right spots. Try not to get the paper stuck on the tape right away. And if you have like a top and a bottom corner line up, the rest of them should line up if you did it right. Okay, and then I just fold this tape over here so that I know that it's not going anywhere. So now I can put this in my bag. I can carry it around with me, whatever, and I'm not gonna lose my registration. If you want, you can even take a piece of tape like this and just put it on the back to make sure these two things are kind of stuck together now, right? So now I just get the joy of working by hand, which is awesome. You always want to cut on one of these. If I catch you guys cutting on one of the tables, you'll be in big trouble, right? So you want to make sure that you use one of these green mats or a piece of mat board or cardboard or something you can't cut into the table. And then you want to use your really sharp X-Acto knife, and just real carefully, again, you can use a ruler if you want to, or you can freehand it, but what we're trying to do now is we're just trying to use our digital guide that we got in Illustrator to cut these stencil shapes out. So, there can be some variety if you want to play around with like making a line wobble or something like that. If that is more interesting to you, that's really up to you. But once we get it done, we just cut that out. And now we have our stencil that we'll be able to lay over this piece, right, using the registration marks. And we'll be able to like whoosh, stencil it, and the ink will transfer through the stencil onto the digital print underneath, and we can repeat it as many times as we want to. So you can spray paint through it, you can sponge over it, whatever you want to do. So we'll do some more tutorials as we go on that, but you just need to take your time now. Like when you get into the typeface stuff, it's going to be really important that you take your time and are very careful and exact. And if you're not that kind of person, you might want to think about not using a really complicated typeface. And make sure that you just clean up after yourself when you're done. There's nothing worse than coming into a classroom after students have been doing a project like this and seeing all of their leftover junk laying around. So make sure you clean up if you want full points for that. And just be careful, because if you overcut something, you really can't put it back. You could tape the back of it on or something like that, but it's really hard to fix a mistake. So be careful, have a good time, and I'll see you when you're ready to print.